which are there committing war crimes in the name of some kind of war, so-called war on terrorism with a humanitarian mandate. So we have to get all these people, all these criminals out of office, every single one of them, if we want to build a new world of peace and prosperity for all our people in the common goal of social justice worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor, could you say something about the ICJ and The Hague? Is there any possibility of taking Israel to court there?
Well, I mean, I think that these initiatives of taking individual heads of state and heads of government to court is a very important exercise, because it also tests the judiciary system as to whether maybe they're run by criminals as well. But I think that's the logic of the Perdana initiative, is to take the war criminals to trial one by one. And if we don't take them to trial in this generation, they will be taken to trial eventually in a subsequent generation. The important thing, I'm a simple researcher in front of a computer. The important thing is that we keep the historical record of these crimes, and that they're not erased, you know, when your data bank is confiscated. I wanted to mention another thing regarding my own presentation. We have, at my research center, we have compiling a data bank of articles on the Freedom Flotilla, which you can get online, and which I presume the conference organizers will also make available to you. We hope to, it's a very complex thing to discuss in a few minutes, but we have to read extensively what happens. We have to take cognizance of all the criminalities which are part of a process, and it's part of a political process, part of an economic process, and for that we have to be able to understand and to do research. I mean, research is not simply an issue for researchers. It's also that people who want to understand their own realities, they research. There has to be a democratization of research, and that is also a task. We have to take the media to the criminal courts as well, because lying is a crime under international law, particularly lying and sustaining the legitimacy of the war criminals. So if somebody says Tony Blair is a nice guy, that is a criminal act, okay? If he says he's a criminal, that is saying the truth. And we must consequently, and I mean, lawyers can examine that, but that is one of our tasks. We have to reverse the tide of disinformation, because ultimately these people, their legitimacy is extremely fragile, and once the truth is revealed, their legitimacy and their position in the seats of government and power collapses like a deck of cards.
Dennis, I think you have something to say.
Thank you. I'd just like to perhaps clarify a little. Michel spoke about the ICJ. The ICJ is the International Criminal Court. International Court of Justice. And that is an intergovernmental entity. So only one country can take another country to the ICJ to process some act of prosecution for an act of violence or whatever may be appropriate. The ICC, which I think Tun Mahathir mentioned earlier today, is the International Criminal Court. Now that's a situation where individuals can be taken to court and prosecuted, and that's where Mr. Bush, Mr. Blair, Netanyahu, and many others, of course, belong in the dock. But of course, you know, we operate with a double standard. So the little guys like Mr. Taylor of West Africa, or our friend, no, not our friend, sorry, individuals from Bosnia or Serbia or whatever, they go to the ICC for prosecution. But the Bushes and the Blairs and those from the important states, quote unquote, apply a double standard. They will not be appearing at ICC, unfortunately. That's something we need to address. Can I just answer the other? Two other questions. One, it sounds like it's from Malaysia, is about a world body that seems to have been undermined by Israeli propaganda. I think what we all have to remember is that the United Nations really has two faces. One is the United Nations of the Secretariat, represented by the Secretary General. And the Secretary General is the servant of the member states. He takes his instructions, he implements or he doesn't implement. If he doesn't, like Mr. Hammarskjöld, he may be assassinated. The other UN is the UN of the organizations, the Security Council, the General Assembly, ECOSOC, Trusteeship Council, and so on. And that's a different ballgame. They are political entities. The Security Council is dominated by the politics of the 5 permanent members, who are not there by accident. Let me explain that, because back in 1945, 3 distinguished gentlemen, Mr. Churchill, Mr. Stalin, and Roosevelt, who under Michel's definition, of course, are all war criminals of a massive proportion. They're the ones who cooked the UN Charter. They created the Security Council, and they made damn sure that the Council was to be controlled. And that's 45, and this is 2010. And believe me, folks, the United States and Russia and China, Britain and France control the Security Council today. So we will never see anything going through the Council that serves the Palestinians in terms of the problems with Israel until we change the Council and reform it, stop the veto, and remove these corrupt countries which dominate it today. And I had one other question, if I may. It was from somebody at the University of Otago in New Zealand, and it raises the question of R2P. Now, R2P is a UN concept called the responsibility to protect. That is, the UN dashes in to protect an ethnic minority or a group or a people or whatever from violence. It sounds absolutely fine. However, I think in reality it's, in my view, a neo-colonial device to intrude with military capacity into the affairs of individual sovereign states. And that's the sort of model we've seen in whether it's Chad or Sudan, or there are many other examples. So I don't actually think R2P is a useful device, because it tends to be violent and militaristic. However, what we have shown with the Marmara and Rachel Corrie and the flotilla is a form of R2P. The Malaysian government, the Malaysian people and others, and the Turks, of course, and the Irish have taken the responsibility to protect. They have taken action through civil society, non-violent action, to try to get into Gaza, to protect the people of Gaza from the violence, the genocide of Israel. That perhaps is the only, in my view, correct model for R2P. We have to do it again and maybe again and again, but non-violent intervention, as per the Pradana philosophy, is the only way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. If I may add some questions to you. I've been receiving quite a number of questions here regarding the role of Egypt. Can you enlighten us about what really is the situation there? Although there have statements made by Egypt about opening up Rafah, we understand that actually the gates are not really so opened, and even if they were, most of the goods that are trying to get in are filtered, and only a small percentage of them actually go through. So what's the situation there? Why is Egypt acting that way? And why is a brother Muslim nation not helping Gaza?
Well, I'm not an expert on this, but if you go back to I think they were called the Camp David Accords, an agreement was reached between Israel under Anwar Sadat. Am I right? Yes. And the Israeli government to recognize each other, to trade with each other, do business together, and so on, and very much under pressure, both under pressure from the United States. Sadat, of course, was assassinated for his pains. The tragedy today